TESOL Pop, Season 9, Episode 7.
Hello and welcome to TESOL Pop, the mini podcast for busy teachers. My name is Laura and joining me today to talk about teaching active listening is communications coach Shweta Ramkumar. What is active listening? What are the benefits? And how can we bring this into our classroom? Shweta answers these questions and more, sharing insights from her practice as a communications and language coach for healthcare professionals. Let's join the conversation where Shweta explains what exactly active listening is.
The deeper elements of this concept is that it involves giving the person who is talking to you or sharing information with you space to express themselves without letting our preconceived judgments and misconceptions get in the way, holding space for the other person to be vulnerable and authentic, and demonstrating to them that you understand where they're coming from and providing them reassurance and sharing your own valuable experiences. So even though we have to listen, but we also have to respond in a way that is congruent with what the other person has said. And just share your own experience and examples to resonate their thoughts and challenges and make them feel validated. So it's more of an art rather than a very basic skill. It takes time, practice, and feedback to get better at, whether we are active listeners or not. A lot of factors go into determining that. So it could be things like our heart space, basically, our level of intuition, our values, our belief systems, the sort of environment we were raised in, the sort of work environments we've been in, and things like that. So it is a much deeper concept than just the plain listening. So it really enables people to be present and in the present moment and sort of really do it without any distractions or sort of their mind wandering off in different directions, really connecting with the other person.
As you were talking about active listening and the role it plays in terms of building relationships and really helping bring people closer together and nurture that connection, coming from an ESL background and teaching English to speakers of other languages, when I think about the course materials, the interactions and the setup is very much transactional. And this was something you just kind of highlighted, and it just made me think of this, is that the settings and scenarios in a lot of the course books I certainly use were to complete a communicative purpose. So this idea of holding space for people and listening to kind of empathize and understand and connect isn't something I've encountered much. Has that been your experience as well when you think about the materials you've used in your coaching and teaching career?
Absolutely. I think when you are teaching, especially in like a group setting in particular, and when I have taught group classes in person and online, you do have the pressure of you have to complete this module, this unit in this amount of time. So, and obviously you have to allow the student to do most of the talking. But even during that time, what you are really doing is, in your head, making like, they've made this mistake or how they can do better. So you're sort of multitasking at that point, or, you are, in your mind, you're like, you're keeping track of time. So you're really not focusing or being present on what the other person is saying. And, in a more, I think, traditional setting, it's a lot harder to do anyway, because as I said, you have admin, you have curriculum, and you have all those things to worry about. And with my brief experience of working in healthcare in general, this is what actually really stood out to me. So my experience as a patient and the feedback I used to get from my patients was that my healthcare provider just does not listen or just does not care. They are more interested in, typing notes away. They're more interested in paperwork. They're more interested in, making notes and, just getting that admin work done. And I'm not saying that that's not important, but that is where the very first way, one of the most fundamental ways in which the disconnect happens between a healthcare provider and a patient. So they feel like they're just not validated, they're not supported, they just don't feel like their healthcare provider really cares about them because they're just not listening. And when they do talk, or when they do sort of give them advice or ask them questions, it's almost like they're reading off a script. It's not like they are really tuning into what the patient is saying and what is it that they're asking for. And also, if they haven't understood it, getting that clarification. So because they normally don't do that, and they just jump on to the next step. And that really is where the rapport, instead of building, it actually breaks. So I have, personally, I have unconsciously, I may have done it. But yeah, and sometimes, and I admit, like these people, they work in very high stress, high pressure environments. So really, they have a deadline to meet. They have to do things in a timely manner. There's KPIs and all that. So really, being present is not always the easiest thing to do, but it is fundamental.
When you talk about the quality of care that's connected to active listening, it obviously seems very obvious what the values of this skill is. And it seems like if we don't do this, from you're talking about your experience, that there could be miscommunications between a healthcare professional and their patients, who are the target audience you work with. Would you say that's the kind of key things really that make this such an important skill, or are there other things?
Oh, it's this is one of the main things, because what I always say is that patients are some of the most vulnerable members of society, because when they come to you, they are of different, there's a big diversity obviously, but they also have a health condition, so they're sick, they're injured, so they're already in a heightened level of stress because of the condition that they're in. So what they really need at that point is feeling supported, feeling like they're part of a team, and reassuring to them that the healthcare provider has their best interests at heart, and not just seeing them as a number or a cog in a system. Because when healthcare providers do this, they just sort of keep going, okay, next patient, next patient. That's how it feels like, And I agree that, when you say next, that means the next person can come on. There's nothing wrong in that. But it's more than just that. And, in my LinkedIn and on my YouTube, there's plenty of resources that you can find on active listening. And one of the posts I made last year was stemmed from one of my colleagues who's in the mental health space. And she, on her in her business page, she mentioned things like, what is the opposite of really actively listening to someone? And she made some really, really good points on what is the the antidote really to active listening.
Let's move on though to talk about how you introduce this skill to your students. So you work with healthcare professionals, and this is a key skill, as you've identified. How do you go about introducing active listening in your classes?
So, how it sort of works is you put them in a situation where you are trying to talk to them. You're just having a normal conversation with them. And the first scenario is, what is the next step? What should you be doing? I sort of challenge them. I don't tell them what the session is about, and can you sort of recall the information that I gave you? Now, this is quite common. This is quite a common icebreaker game that I've seen in a lot of places too. So, normally you'll say, oh, relay the three facts or the 3 points that the person said. Usually they'll easily say the first and the third one, but they forget the second one completely. Which is that is one of the ways in which I introduce this concept. And then we sort of draw those parallels, like I mentioned at the beginning, what basic listening is and what active listening is. And I get them to, a lot of my work involves a lot of reflection. So I don't really strictly go off a curriculum as such. So I get clients to reflect on, okay, during this session or this little experiment that we did, what should you have done to demonstrate active listening, and what shouldn't you should what you did was that was the opposite of that, and how you can get better at it. And then we work on different things. It's so that's one concept. That's obviously paraphrasing to what the other person is saying. The next thing would be what sort of body language that you have. That's the next coaching session, depending obviously on how intense the coaching session has to be. The next one might be what to avoid saying and doing, and again, that can also be broken down into 2 or 3 sessions. And sometimes, a lot of it also involves getting them to go back to their past or even their present, what kind of a home environment they grew up in, where were you seen and not heard? That's, back in our day, that's how when our parents raised us, that's what children should be seen and not heard. And that may have been imprinted into their mind, saying that, okay, so no matter what I say or do, no one's going to hear me, so I'm also not going to bother. They might be conditioned that way. They might be working in an environment where they don't feel the same. They feel the same way. They feel that they're not heard or acknowledged. And so all these things really condition and program us into our listening skills also, and our skills to be empathetic, and really identifying those gaps and sort of working on how we can sort of bridge that gap. And also exercises that I give them are Okay, try this at work, try this at home, and tell me what you progressed on and what you could have done better.
You mentioned that there's a lot of components to active listening, from paraphrasing to the body language to indicators such as tell me more, clarifying as well if we're uncertain. As a parting gift today that listeners can take and try, what would you suggest would be one little thing they could try with their students today to try and improve their active listening?
Definitely, I think paraphrasing back to their students. So I know that when you're working with the ESL group, sometimes there can be limitations in vocabulary, there can be differences in accents, differences in grammar. So just so that they are able to clearly understand or have actually grasped what the other person has said, paraphrase it or just relay it back to them. So just to clarify, this is what you said to me. It's a pretty simple thing, especially when the information that's coming at the other end is quite a complex one. So, and also I think even teaching students exactly how to do it, because I think students, what they will do is, could you repeat that, please? That's just I think they've just been trained to just ask, could you repeat that, please? And while there's nothing wrong in repeating that, I think they can also ask their students, especially if there was a lot of information, you can ask, which bit did you not understand or were you not clear about? So, that way, I think it is a two-way street. Obviously, students also have to listen, but also teachers, obviously, they also have to be equipped on how they can how they can receive actively. And one of the things that you can do is, you should paraphrase or give examples or even simplifying information. That is another way that you can actually get this done.
I think that's an absolute golden nugget to close this episode on: paraphrasing, not parroting.
Yes.
And I think that's so valuable to teachers and learners. It's a skill that we can all apply. So thank you so much for sharing that really practical tip for us to take away today.
Thank you so much for having me.
For more insights into active listening and other skills that you can bring to your classroom, check out Shweta's YouTube channel, website and socials. All of those links are in the show notes so you can easily access them. Now, if you have a question or an idea that you'd like to pitch to TESOL Pop, then you can contact us on social media or go to our website, tesolpop.com. Finally, if you love the work we do at TESOL Pop, you can support us by sharing today's episode with your teaching community to continue the conversation, by leaving a rating review so more teachers can discover us, or by even treating Haven and I to a coffee. Now, wouldn't that be nice? By going to ko-fi.com/TESOL Pop.